at this point, I offer it into evidence.
Any objection, counsel? Mr. Davis?
No objection, Your Honor.
Received.
Yeah, one housekeeping thing, Your Honor. Can we get a time estimate for cross of this witness? I've got another witness who's kind of standing by.
Mr. Ortega?
15 minutes, I think, at most.
Okay.
If we don't finish today, when can we continue this? I've got personal business tomorrow, and it's going to take me all day, and so Ana Luz, when can we, just in case, Ana Luz, when can we continue this as quickly as possible?
We have either next Tuesday around 10 o'clock and then until the rest of the day.
There we go.
And then we also have Wednesday and Thursday, both days completely available.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, I'm booked. I've got 2 days of mediation, Tuesday and Wednesday, and expert depositions and a trial set for February the 3rd and 4th. I'm free the 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th, if any of those days work.
Judge, we're optimistic we're going to be done today. I mean, I've got 15 minutes. I don't have witnesses. It's Mr. Davis who needs to present his witnesses, and it's up to him. But I'm going to be done in 15 minutes at most.
Okay.
We will try to finish today.
Yeah, I'm not pushing you, okay? Just in case you don't, we'll find another time and day to finish this up, okay?
Okay, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Ortega.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Rodriguez Jimenez, before the break, I believe we very briefly talked about the magazine Vamos. Do you recall that?
Señor Rodríguez, antes del descanso, me parece que nosotros brevemente hablamos acerca de la revista Vamos. ¿Recuerda usted eso?
Sí, me acuerdo.
Yes, I remember.
My recollection of your testimony was that you admitted that Vamos circulates in El Paso, Texas. Is that true?
Según lo que yo recuerdo del testimonio, es de que usted admitió que Vamos, la revista Vamos circula en El Paso, Texas. ¿Es cierto esto?
¿Es correcto?
That's correct.
Let me show you, Mr. Rodriguez, Plaintiff's Exhibit 7. Do you see that up on your screen?
Señor Rodríguez, permítame enseñarle la prueba del demandante número 7. ¿Ve usted eso en la pantalla?
Sí, la veo.
I do see it.
This is the Vamos magazine that we've been talking about. This one has a date of March 13 through March 19 of 2020, correct?
Y esta es la revista Vamos de la que hemos estado hablando, y esta específicamente tiene una fecha de marzo 13 hasta el 19 de marzo del 2020, ¿cierto?
Señor.
Yes.
This is the same publication, or at least a sample of the Vamos publication that, to your testimony, circulates in El Paso, Texas, correct?
Esta es la misma publicación, o mínimo una muestra de la publicación que, según usted en su testimonio, circula dentro del Paso, Texas. ¿Es correcto eso?
¿Es correcto?
That's correct.
My recollection, too, of your testimony earlier today is that the Vamos magazine is prepared, at least in part, by El Diario de Juárez, correct?
Y según lo que yo recuerdo de su testimonio, mínimo de lo que ha dicho, es de que la revista Vamos se circula en parte con la ayuda de la publicación por parte del Diario de Juárez, ¿correcto?
La publicación de Vamos la imprime Ciudad Juárez
Yes, it is printed in Ciudad Juárez.
y se edita en Ciudad Juárez también.
And it is also edited in Ciudad Juárez.
In fact, the directory that's found on page 1 of the Diario magazine shows a directory, and in that directory, I believe you could see the individuals that form the editorial team for El Diario de Juárez, correct?
Y de hecho, según la hoja número 1 de la revista del diario, se refleja un directorio, y dentro del directorio se puede ver las personas encargadas de la edición de dicha revista, ¿correcto?
Correcto.
Correct.
It also references El Diario del Paso, correct?
Y también hace referencia a El Diario del Paso, ¿correcto?
Correcto.
Correct.
With a phone number in El Paso County and an email address with the diariousa.com domain name, correct?
Y que incluye número de teléfono del Condado del Paso y también un correo electrónico que tiene el dominio del Diario USA, ¿correcto?
Correcto.
Correct.
The Vamos publication also publicizes advertisements of El Paso establishments, correct?
Y la publicación Vamos también hace público o presenta anuncios de negocios que están en El Paso, ¿correcto?
Correcto.
Correct.
It also publishes events that are happening in El Paso County, correct?
Y también publica eventos que están ocurriendo en el Condado del Paso, ¿correcto?
Correcto.
Correct.
As an example, on page 4 of Plaintiff's Exhibit 7, you could see that there's a full page ad that was taken out in Vamos of an event that took place in El Paso on the El Paso Theater, correct?
Y como un ejemplo de estos, en la hoja número 4 de la prueba número 7 del demandante, podemos ver un anuncio que usa toda una hoja en esta publicación de un evento que ocurrió en el Teatro Plaza del Paso, ¿correcto?
Correcto.
Correct.
And as you stated earlier, it publishes advertisement for El Paso businesses and establishments like the one that's shown on page 5 of Plaintiff's Exhibit 7, correct?
Y como se dijo anteriormente, en esta revista también se anuncian establecimientos y negocios del Paso conforme el que se refleja en la hoja número 5 de la prueba número 7, ¿correcto?
Correcto.
Correct.
The same is true for page 6 of Plaintiff's Exhibit 7.
Y lo mismo de la hoja número 6 de la prueba del demandante número 7.
Correcto.
Correct.
Same for page 7.
Y lo mismo en cuanto a la hoja número 7.
Sí.
Yes.
Hold on. Lower, it says 14. Why are you using
Oh,
a different?
I'm sorry, Judge. I'm looking at the number of pages that comprise Exhibit 7, but for explanatory purposes, I'll use, to your
Yes.
point, the page that's listed on the publication. So this would be page 15 of the actual publication of Vamos that's reflected in Plaintiff's Exhibit 7.
Correct. You've been using a different number on these other exhibits. So please use the same one.
Will do, Judge. This is the same as true, Mr. Rodriguez, as reflected on page 15 of the publication of Vamos in Plaintiff's Exhibit 7.
Y señor Rodríguez, lo mismo es lo mismo en cuanto a lo que lo mismo es cierto en cuanto a lo que se refleja en la hoja 15 de la publicación Diarios del Paso. Digo, la publicación Vamos de la revista Vamos.
Correcto.
Correct.
This is an El Paso establishment, West Texas Chop House, correct?
Y se trata de el restaurante de West Texas Chop House que se encuentra localizado en El Paso, ¿correcto?
Correcto.
Correct.
There's also publication in Vamos for Café Central Restaurant, which is an El Paso restaurant, correct?
Y también en Vamos hay una publicación de el Café Central que también se encuentra en El Paso, Texas, ¿correcto?
Correcto.
Correct.
Plaintiff's Exhibit 7 also contains advertisement for the Great American Steakhouse, which is also an El Paso establishment, correct?
Y la prueba número 7 del demandante también contiene un anuncio de el Great American Steakhouse, restaurante que también se encuentra localizado en El Paso, Texas, ¿correcto?
Correcto.
Correct.
Page 18.
That's correct. We talked about this earlier on page 25 of the publication Vamos, as shown in Plaintiff's Exhibit 7, shows an advertisement of UTEP in Vamos, correct?
Y hablamos de esto anteriormente en la revista Vamos, la hoja número 25 de la revista Vamos, contiene un anuncio para la Universidad UTEP de lo que se refleja en la prueba número 7 del demandante, ¿correcto?
Correcto.
Correct.
Page 40 of the publication Vamos, as shown in Plaintiff's Exhibit 7, shows advertisement for Borderplex, which is an organization that's headquartered in El Paso, correct?
Y la hoja número 40 de la revista Vamos, que se encuentra en la prueba número 7 del demandante, también tiene un anuncio de Borderplex, que es un establecimiento que tiene las oficinas centrales en El Paso, Texas, ¿correcto?
Pues ahí dice, visit the Borderplex, Ciudad Juárez, El Paso, en Las Cruces.
Well, it says there, visit the borderplex, Ciudad Juárez, El Paso, and Las Cruces.
There's also publicity of Digpo Dodge Ram and Digpo Chrysler Jeep, which are two car dealerships in El Paso County, Texas, correct?
Y también hay publicaciones de Digpo Dodge Ram y de Digpo Chrysler Jeep, que son dos agencias de autos que se encuentran en El Paso, Texas, ¿correcto?
¿Correcto?
Correct.
Is it true then, Mr. Rodriguez, that Vamos for many years has published advertisements for El Paso businesses and institutions?
Es cierto entonces, señor Rodríguez, que la revista Vamos por muchos años ha publicado anuncios para negocios y establecimientos que se encuentran en El Paso?
¿Sí es correcto?
Yes, that's correct.
And it has done so even though it is a publication that's edited and printed by El Diario de Juárez, correct?
Y lo ha hecho a pesar de ser una publicación que es editada y impresa por el Diario de Juárez, ¿correcto?
Bueno, no es correcto. La publicación de Vamos para los anunciantes del Paso va adentro del Diario del Paso y existe una circulación externa en el Paso.
Well, no, that is not correct. For the Vamos magazine, for the El Paso, the advertisement for El Paso businesses is contained in an insert for Diario de El Paso, and then there is an external publication of Vamos at El Paso.
Now, you testified earlier, unless I misunderstood, that El Diario de Juárez prints and edits el diario, the Vamos magazine. Isn't that what you said?
Ahora, usted declaró anteriormente, a menos que me equivoca, que el Diario de Juárez es el que se encarga de editar y de imprimir la revista Vamos. ¿Es lo que usted dijo?
¿Es correcto?
That's correct.
When El Diario del Paso purchases El Diario de Juárez, I'm assuming that the Vamos magazine is periodically included in there, correct?
Y cuando el Diario del Paso compra el Diario de Juárez, me imagino que la revista Vamos periódicamente se encuentra dentro de este, ¿correcto?
Objection, does he mean by the phrase in there in El Diario de Juárez or in El Diario de El Paso?
Counsel?
As part of El Diario de Juárez.
Y la pregunta es, ¿la revista Vamos se encuentra dentro como parte del Diario de Juárez?
En el Paso se encuentra dentro como parte del Diario del Paso.
In El Paso, it is found inside as part of El Diario del Paso.
How does Vamos magazine reach El Paso?
¿Cómo es que la revista Vamos llega a El Paso?
Llega adentro del Diario del Paso y hay una circulación adicional de algunos miles de ejemplares que se reparten en negocios como una publicación gratuita.
It reaches it through the Diario of El Paso inside, and then there is an additional publication which circulates a few thousands of copies within businesses of El Paso, and this is a free publication.
Sir, I'm confused because you testified earlier that El Diario de Juárez edits and prints Vamos. I want to know how that magazine is then included as part of El Diario del Paso.
Señor, ya me he confundido porque te dijo anteriormente que el Diario de Juárez se encarga de editar y de imprimir la revista Vamos. Entonces yo lo que quiero saber cómo es que la revista Vamos llega a ser parte del Diario del Paso.
Es muy simple. La revista de Vamos se edita y se imprime en Ciudad Juárez, Chihuahua, y luego los anunciantes que buscan al Diario del Paso, que se quieren anunciar en Vamos, se anuncian, y la circulación de la revista Vamos en El Paso va dentro de la sección del Diario del Paso y la circulación externa.
So it's very simple. The magazine Vamos is edited and it's printed in Ciudad Juárez, Chihuahua, and then the people who want to have advertisements with Diario del Paso in the magazine Vamos will do it, and the magazine will be included inside Diario del Paso as part of it. Plus, there is another circulation on top of that that circulates in El Paso.
How does el Diario del Paso get a hold of the Vamos magazine?
¿Cómo es que el diario de El Paso llega a tener la revista Vamos?
De la misma manera que el diario de El Paso llega a El Paso. La revista se imprime en Juárez, viene una camioneta de la empresa del diario El Paso, recoge el diario El Paso. Cuando la revista sale, pues va dentro del diario El Paso y aparte recoge las que se van a repartir en los negocios por fuera.
It's the same way as how the Diario del Paso reaches El Paso. The magazine is printed in Juárez, and then a truck that belongs to Diario del Paso comes and picks it up and takes it over to El Paso. And then the copy of the Vamos magazine that is included in Diario del Paso is there. Plus, additionally, they also pick up the magazines, the extra magazines that will be circulating in El Paso.
Does el Diario del Paso pay el Diario de Juárez for Vamos?
¿El Diario del Paso le paga a Diario de Juárez por Vamos?
Sí, claro.
Yes, of course.
How long has that been happening?
¿Cuánto tiempo lleva esto ya sucediendo?
Ha sido siempre.
It's always been that way.
Has it been at least 10 years?
¿Ha sido así mínimo 10 años?
Pues no me acuerdo, señor Ortega, porque hubo un tiempo en que por cuestiones de poco negocio no salió la revista Vamos y luego la volvimos a retomar.
Well, you see, Mr. Ortega, I don't remember because for some time, because of the business that was low, Vamos magazine was not coming out, and then we started with it again.
When was Vamos founded, to your knowledge?
Según su conocimiento, ¿cuándo se fundó Vamos?
No me acuerdo.
I don't remember.
Has it been at least 5 years?
¿Han sido mínimo 5 años?
Pues sí, pero como le digo, por ejemplo, la pandemia no salió. Duró casi 8 meses sin salir.
Well, yes, but as I told you, for example, during the pandemic, it hardly ever came out. It was out for about 8 months.
Okay, but before the pandemic, was that the case though?
Sí, pero antes de la pandemia, ¿ese era el caso entonces?
No le puedo responder en fechas exactamente. Estoy tratando de recordar, pero no me acuerdo.
I cannot respond to you with dates, with exact dates. I am trying to remember, but no, I mean, I can't.
Now, does each newspaper have the ability to contract on behalf of the other?
Ahora, cada uno de los periódicos tiene la capacidad de hacer contratos a nombre de otros.
No.
No.
Has el Diario del Paso and el Diario de Juárez entered into an agreement to allow each other to use space in each other's newspaper for the publication of advertisements and other matters?
Ahora el Diario del Paso y el Diario de Juárez han llegado a un acuerdo donde van a permitir que uno y el otro utilicen el espacio según uno y el otro para hacer publicaciones y anuncios entre ellos mismos.
Anuncios, sí, hay anunciantes.
Advertisements, yes, there are
Anunciantes que quieren negocios. Se lo he repetido muchas veces esto, señor Ortega, discúlpeme, pero me confunde porque es la misma pregunta en 2 días como 20 veces o más.
Translate that.
So there are people who want to advertise, or I mean, actually businesses. And Mr. Ortega, I am sorry, I will say it to you again because it's the same question that you've been asking me in 2 days, and you've asked it like over 20 times already.
Entonces, vamos a empezar otra vez, por enésima vez. El anunciante que el Diario del Paso busca con empleados del Diario del Paso, para el Diario del Paso, a veces el anunciante pide información de los periódicos en México.
Permítame, señor, I will repeat it for the nth time. So the person who wants to advertise at Diario del Paso will contact the employees of Diario del Paso for Diario del Paso, and sometimes they request information for those newspapers located in Juárez.
Entonces, perdón,
No, I'm sorry, sir, you were still answering. My apologies.
sí. Entonces, la respuesta es que son dos empresas diferentes. Acuerdos entre las empresas se tiene que pagar la publicidad que el Diario del Paso contrata para Juárez o contrata para Chihuahua.
Permítame. So the response, my answer is this one. There are two different corporations and there are agreements that the advertisement that is hired for Diario del Paso, it has to be paid also if it is advertised in Diario de Juárez or in Diario de Chihuahua. Continúe, señor.
Y viceversa.
And vice versa.
Mr. Rodriguez, let me show you what I've marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 1. Do you see that up on your screen?
Señor Rodríguez, permítame mostrarle lo que yo he marcado como prueba del demandante número 1. ¿Lo ve en su pantalla?
Sí, sí lo veo.
Yes, I can see it.
Have you ever seen this document before?
¿Había visto usted este documento antes?
Perdón, esto lo estoy leyendo, pero no estoy seguro.
Excuse me, I am reading it. Well, I'm not sure.
Is that your signature on page 3 of Plaintiff's Exhibit 1?
¿Esta es la firma de usted en la hoja número 3 de la prueba del demandante número 1?
Sí, sí la es.
Yes, yes, it is.
This was a contract that was presumably signed by you and Juan Gaucin on January 1, 2018. Is that correct?
Este es de un contrato que supuestamente fue firmado por usted y por Juan Gaucin el 1 de enero del 2018. ¿Es correcto?
¿Es correcto?
That's correct.
Who is Juan Gaucin?
¿Y quién es Juan Gaucin?
Es el contralor del Diario del Paso.
It is the buyer of El Diario del Paso.
Is he signing this contract on behalf of El
It's
Diario
not-
del Paso?
It's not buyer.
No es comprador, contralor. Es el
Comptroller.
He is the comptroller.
The
No, he's
account-
not the buyer. He is the comptroller of
The
Diario del
account-
Paso.
the account,
Control is right.
accounting. Accounting, I'm sorry.
The
Oh,
accountant. I mean to say the accountant. I'm sorry,
Not comprador.
not the buyer.
Okay, just to make sure that we've got a clear record, Juan Gaucin is the accountant for El Diario del Paso. Is that correct?
Y nada más para que quede claro en el acta, Juan Gaucin viene siendo el contador del Diario del Paso. ¿Es correcto esto?
Sí.
Yes.
Hold on. What's the Spanish word for accountant?
Contralor, account, contador.
Contador. The Spanish for accountant is contador.
Thank you.
And the English word for the word that is stated there as contralor would be the comptroller, C-O-M-P-T-R-O-L-E-R.
So this Juan Gaucin is the comptroller.
Así que este Juan Gaucin es el contralor, comptroller.
Correcto.
Of El Diario del Paso, correct?
Y del Diario del Paso, ¿correcto?
Sí, señor.
Yes, sir.
To your knowledge, in your capacity as a shareholder of El Diario del Paso, does Juan Gaucin have the ability to sign contracts on behalf of El Diario del Paso?
Y según su conocimiento como accionista de este periódico, el Juan Gaucin tiene la capacidad, tiene el derecho, tiene la capacidad de firmar contratos para el Diario del Paso.
Sí.
Yes.
This contract was signed by you on behalf of El Diario del Juárez, correct?
Este contrato lo firmó usted a nombre del Diario de Juárez, ¿correcto?
Sí, como representante legal del Diario de Juárez.
Yes, as a legal agent of El Diario de Juárez.
Is it true that you actually signed this contract on January 1, 2018?
Y es cierto que de hecho usted firmó este contrato el 1 de enero del 2018.
¿Correcto?
Correct.
Was this document prepared by an attorney?
¿Este documento fue preparado por un abogado?
¿no?
Who prepared this contract?
¿Quién fue la persona que preparó este contrato?
Juan Gausín.
Juan Gausín.
What was the purpose of Mr. Gausin, if you know, for drafting and signing this contract?
¿Y cuál era el propósito de que Juan Gausín, si es que usted sabe, haya escrito y firmado este contrato?
Son contratos que se hacen entre las empresas, nada más.
These are contracts that are done between the corporations, and that's it.
For what purpose?
¿Y cuál es el propósito?
De que exista un convenio entre ambas empresas.
For there to be an agreement between both corporations.
An agreement for what?
¿Un convenio para qué?
Pues pudiera ser para la publicidad. Como le dije en un principio, la gente que quiere anunciarse en México, se anuncia en México y las empresas se dividen el 70% y 30%. Y la gente, las empresas mexicanas que se quieren anunciar en el Diario El Paso, es lo mismo. 70% para El Paso y 30% para Juárez.
And it's for advertisement, for instance. And like I told you before, the corporations in Mexico or the people who request advertisement in Mexico will do it in Mexico, and the division of the money generated will be 70-30. And it's the same thing for the Mexican people who want to place advertisements in El Paso. The El Paso office will get 70% and Mexico would get 30%.
Who authorized Mr. Gausin to draft this contract? If you
¿Quién
know,
Si es que usted sabe, ¿quién le autorizó al señor Gausín que escribiera este contrato?
No estoy seguro, pero debió haber sido Adrián Rodríguez.
I am not sure, but it should have been Adrián Rodríguez.
who is he and who is he part of?
¿Quién es él y él qué parte ocupa dónde?
Él es el gerente administrativo del Diario El Paso y también es mi hermano.
He is the administrative manager of Diario del Paso, and he is also my brother.
Page 1 of the contract as shown in Plaintiff's Exhibit 1 refers to the signatory parties as Paso del Norte Publishing, Inc., which is referred to as publishing, and Publicaciones Impresos Paso del Norte, which it refers to impresos, correct?
La hoja número 1 de la prueba número 1 del demandante dice aquí que las personas que están firmando el contrato vienen siendo Paso del Norte Publishing Inc., quien se refiere a publishing, y Publicaciones Impresos Paso del Norte, quien viene refiriéndose como aquí nombrado como impresos, ¿cierto?
Correcto.
Correct.
Now, let me direct your attention, sir, to page 2 under the heading cláusulas. Do you see that?
Ahora, señor, le quiero dirigir su atención a hoja número 2 bajo el encabezado de cláusulas. ¿Ve usted eso?
¿Sí la veo?
Yes, I can see that.
I'm going to read to you in Spanish, section 2 under cláusulas, and ask the interpreter to interpret that from Spanish to English. And I have the translation for ease of review, if it's acceptable to you. It states in Spanish, section 2, acepta publishing de manera enunciativa, mas no limitativa, que impresos pueda contratarle publicidad, contratos, anuncios, paneles, eventos, fotografías, encartes y cualquier producto que pueda ser comercializado por medio del Diario del Paso.
Y señor, le acaba de leer el abogado a usted lo que viene siendo el número 2 bajo la sección de cláusulas, y se le pide a la intérprete que si se interpreta al inglés lo que acaba de leerse al español. Do you have the English version just to read it? Clauses. Number 2, publishing agrees that impresos may contract for them, including but not limited to advertising, agreements, spots, panels, events, photos, inserts, and any product that may be sold by El Diario del Paso.
Now, as I understand section 2 of this agreement, El Diario del Paso has the ability to contract on behalf of El Diario de Juárez for, including but not limited to, advertising, agreements, spots, panels, events, photos, inserts, and any product that may be sold by El Diario del Paso, correct?
Ahora, según lo que yo entiendo en la sección 2 bajo cláusulas, aquí dice que el Diario del Paso tiene la capacidad, pero no se limita a llegar a un contrato por parte del Diario de Juárez también, que puede incluir, sin embargo, no se limita a publicidad, contratos, anuncios, paneles, eventos, fotografías, encartes y cualquier otro producto que se pueda ser comercializado por medio del Diario del Paso. ¿Es cierto eso?
Correcto.
Correct.
The same is true the other way around. Is that correct?
Y es lo mismo al revés, ¿correcto?
Correcto.
Correct.
In other words, El Diario de Juárez has also agreed in that agreement that it could contract for El Diario del Paso for including but not limited to advertising, agreements, spots, panels, events, photos, inserts, and any product that may be sold by El Diario de Juárez. True?
En otras palabras, el Diario de Juárez está llegando al acuerdo y de que puede hacerlo a nombre del Diario del Paso, llegar a contratar para hacer propaganda de publicidad, contratos, anuncios, planes, eventos, fotografías, encartes y cualquier producto que pueda ser comercializado por medio del Diario de Juárez, ¿cierto?
Es correcto.
That's correct.
In other words, and I think you said this earlier, but El Diario de El Paso acts as an agent of El Diario de Juárez in the state of Texas for purposes of contracting, correct?
En otras palabras, y me parece que ustedes ya dijo esto anteriormente, que el Diario del Paso se encarga de actuar como agente representante del Diario de Juárez para publicaciones que se hagan en El Paso, Texas, ¿correcto?
Antes del nacimiento del Diario del Paso, existía una oficina de publicidad para los periódicos de Juárez. Eso pasó antes del 2005, entonces hay algunos vendedores que todavía están ahí, pero sí, pero es exclusivamente para publicidad.
Before, there used to be an office where that was used for publication, and this was to publish advertisements for Diario de Juárez, but this was before 2005, and some staff is still there and they still use it. But yes, this is only for the purpose of for announcement, for advertising.
No, I don't think I understood your answer.
No creo haber entendido la contestación que me dio.
My question to you was based on Plaintiff's Exhibit 1, El Diario del Paso acts as an agent with the ability to contract on behalf of El Diario de Juárez in the state of Texas, correct?
Lo que yo le estaba preguntando es de que el Diario de Paso actúa como agente representativo con la capacidad de llegar a hacer contratos a nombre del Diario de Juárez dentro del estado de Texas. ¿Es cierto eso?
Solamente cuando el cliente solicita. El Diario de Juárez no se promueve en El Paso. Es el cliente que pide anunciarse en México. Entonces, si se ve de esa manera, pues es obvio que damos el servicio y nos convertimos en una agencia de publicidad para los periódicos de Juárez.
Only when the client requests it. It's not common that El Diario de Juárez will be advertising in El Paso, but if the client requests to advertise in El Paso, then obviously we become as agents for that purpose.
I'm not asking you what clients prefer. I'm asking you, based on Plaintiff's Exhibit 1, which you have up on your screen, isn't it true that El Diario de El Paso has the contractual ability to sign contracts as an agent on behalf of El Diario de Juárez in the state of Texas? Isn't that what the document shows?
Yo no le estoy preguntando cuál es la preferencia del cliente. Yo le estoy preguntando acerca de la capacidad, que según la prueba número 1 que tenemos aquí, que usted la puede ver en su pantalla, que el Diario del Paso tiene la capacidad contractual de firmar contratos a nombre del Diario de Juárez dentro del estado de Texas. ¿No es eso lo que se demuestra en la prueba?
Objection asked and answered.
Overruled, answer it.
Se niega la protesta que ha habido de que ya se contestó la pregunta. Conteste.
Sí,
Yes.
Ask the witness.
Mr. Davis.
Yes, sir. Mr. Rodriguez, using under Exhibit 1 that you've been looking at,
yes.
can El Paso contract for Juarez for anything except advertising?
Señor Rodríguez, bajo la prueba número 1 que había estado viendo, El Paso puede llegar a firmar contratos o a llegar a contratos para el Juárez para algo aparte que no sea para propaganda.
No.
No.
Exhibit 1 was created to give for each party to give the other party the authority to negotiate advertising rates for the other party in the two different countries, correct?
La prueba número 1 se creó para darle a cada una de las partes la autoridad a la otra parte para que negocie los precios de anunciarse en los periódicos mutuos en el país, en los dos países, ¿correcto?
Correcto.
Correct.
If an El Paso business wants to advertise in the Juarez paper, can it do so by going directly to El Paso, El Diario de Juarez?
Objection, speculation.
Repeat the question. I'm sorry, counsel.
I'll phrase it this way. Will El Diario de Juarez accept advertising directly from an El Paso business for advertising in El Diario de Juarez?
¿Acaso el Diario de Juárez aceptaría las propagandas directamente viniendo de El Paso para que se publiquen en el Diario de Juárez exclusivamente?
No.
No.
If an El Paso business wants to advertise in El Diario de Juarez, what does it have to do?
Si un negocio que está en El Paso quiere hacerse propaganda en el Diario de Juárez, ¿qué es lo que tiene que hacer este?
Tiene que ir y contratarlo al Diario del Paso.
He has to go and hire it at el Diario del Paso.
Okay. Does El Diario de Juarez solicit advertising in El Paso from El Paso businesses?
¿Acaso el Diario de Juárez solicita propagandas dentro de El Paso, en el Diario del Paso, para negocios del Paso?
No.
No.
In reverse, if a Juarez business wants to advertise in El Paso, what do they have to do?
Y de lo contrario, o al revés, si un negocio de Juárez quiere hacer propaganda en El Paso, ¿qué tienen que hacer?
Contratarlo a través de las oficinas del Diario de Juárez.
Hire them through the offices of el Diario de Juárez.
And you told us earlier that the split for the two papers is that the one that prints the advertising gets 70% of the advertising money and the one that gets the customer gets 30%. Is that correct?
Usted ya nos había dicho anteriormente que la forma en que se dividían entre los periódicos, lo que salía era de que el que ponía la propaganda agarraba el 70% y el que conseguía el cliente conseguía el 30%. ¿Es correcto eso?
¿Es correcto?
That's correct.
Does El Diario de Juarez have an office in El Paso?
¿El Diario de Juárez tiene oficina en El Paso?
No, señor.
No, sir.
Does El Diario de Juarez have employees in El Paso?
¿El Diario de Juárez tiene empleados en El Paso?
No, señor.
No, sir.
You saw earlier in some of the exhibits that Mr. Ortega used that El Diario de Juarez has the El Diario de El Paso phone number on them. You recall that? One of those was exhibit 3, I believe. You recall that?
Usted vio anteriormente en algunas de las pruebas que el señor Ortega nos enseñó de que el Diario de Juárez tiene el número de teléfono del Diario del Paso y me parece que una de las que tenía eso era la prueba número 3. ¿Recuerda usted eso?
Sí, sí me acuerdo.
Okay.
Yes, I remember.
I'm going to pull that up.
Y lo voy a poner.
There's exhibit 3. So do you see in the right-hand side, the phone number, the 915-838-1602 number?
Sí.
Ah,
sí lo veo.
¿Ve usted del lado derecho el número de teléfono de 915-3816-02, ese número de teléfono?
Sí lo veo.
Yes, I can see it.
Is that El Diario de Juarez's phone number?
¿Ese es el número de teléfono del Diario de Juárez?
No,
Whose phone
No.
number is it?
¿A quién corresponde el número?
el Diario del Paso.
Diario del Paso.
Why is El Diario de El Paso's phone number in the El Diario de Juarez's classified section?
¿Y por qué se encuentra el número de teléfono del Diario del Paso en la sección de clasificados del Diario de Juárez?
Para que la gente que quiera anunciar su anuncio en la sección de clasificados se comunique al Diario del Paso.
For those people who want to place their advertisement at the classified ads section can communicate to El Paso.
Are you talking about the classified ad section in El Paso?
¿Se refiere usted al área de clasificados en El Paso?
Sí, perdón.
Yes, sorry.
If someone wants to put an ad in the classified section of El Diario de El Paso, and they're from Juarez, do they have to go through El Diario de Juarez to do so?
Objection leading.
Don't lead.
Si alguien quiere anunciarse en la sección de clasificados del Diario del Paso y ellos son de Juárez, ¿tienen que contactar al periódico de Diario de Juárez?
Sí,
Yes.
Are they required to do so?
¿Ese es un requisito el hacerlo así?
sí.
Yes.
If someone wants to advertise a classified ad in Juarez and they live in El Paso, what do they have to do?
Si alguien quiere poner un anuncio clasificado en Juárez y viven en El Paso, ¿qué tienen que hacer?
Ir al Diario del Paso o hablar al Diario del Paso.
Go to el Diario del Paso or call el Diario del Paso.
Mr. Ortega, we didn't have an opportunity to pull up Exhibit 48. Could you do that for me, please? Did you want it?
Yeah, you would just need to stop sharing your screen. There you go.
And you go to the last page, please. It's number 9. Is this page 9. On page, could you pull up page 9, sir? The last page.
This is the last page.
Oh, there's no page up. On my screen, it just shows your list of exhibits.
Judge, can you see the page
No.
9?
No, sir, I can't. All I see is a PDF, exhibits, and then all the exhibits.
All right, I apologize. Let me try that again. Can you see it now?
Yes, I can see aviso clasificado.
Mr.
Diario
Davis,
del Paso.
If you go down to the bottom, please. There you go. You see that on the bottom of page 9 of Plaintiff's Exhibit 48, where it says in nuestro clasificado de El Diario de El Paso?
Yes.
¿Ve usted la porción inferior de la hoja número 9 de la prueba número 48 donde dice nuestro clasificado del Diario del Paso in our classified ads section of el Diario del Paso?
Okay, who placed that ad or that section in El Diario de Juárez?
¿Quién puso esa sección o ese anuncio en el Diario de Juárez?
El Diario del Paso.
El Diario del Paso.
And why did it do so?
¿Y por qué lo hizo?
Lo hizo para la gente de Juárez que quiera poner sus clasificados en el Diario del Paso.
It did it for the people of Juárez who wish to place their classified ads in El Diario del Paso.
Okay. Turn to the page 2 of that exhibit, if we could, sir. Yeah, thanks. Mr. Rodriguez, you recall answering questions for Mr. Ortega with regards to this EPCC ad on page 2 of their exhibit 48?
Señor Rodríguez, ¿recuerda usted haber contestado preguntas que le hizo el señor Ortega en cuanto a preguntas de esta propaganda o este anuncio que se encuentra en la hoja número 2 de su prueba número 48 para la Universidad Comunitaria del Paso?
Sí.
Yes.
Who is that ad directed to?
¿A quién se dirige? ¿Cuál es el público que busca esta propaganda?
I'm going to object to speculation, Judge. I mean, he would have to ascertain what was the advertiser's intent. He does not work for EPCC, so it's speculative.
Sustain.
Okay, Mr. Rodriguez, you see in that under the purple line where it says no necesitas visa de estudiante?
Señor Rodríguez, ¿ve usted eso abajo de la línea amarilla donde dice no necesitas visa de estudiante? You don't need a student visa.
Sí.
Where? Oh, I see it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
If this were directed to El Paso residents, would you need to talk about whether or not they needed a student visa to go to a community college?
Objection, speculation. There's a lot of Mexican nationals that live in El Paso.
Overruled. Go ahead.
Si esto fuera dirigido a los residentes de El Paso, ¿se necesitaría decirles a ellos que no necesitan una visa de estudiante para ir aquí?
No, claro que no.
No, of course not.
Okay. I want to clear up something in regards to the online advertising and online subscriptions, okay?
Quiero clarificar algo acerca de la propaganda en línea, de cómo se hacen las suscripciones en línea. ¿Está bien?
Sí, señor.
Is Diario.mx paid for any of the advertising that is placed online with it?
¿Diario MX paga por la propaganda que se publica en este?
No.
No.
Does it get paid for any? Does it get paid any money if someone subscribes to either El Diario de El Paso or El Diario de Juárez going through the website?
Este recibe dinero si alguien se suscribe a Diario del Paso o a Diario de Juárez, haciéndolo a través del sitio de internet.
No.
No.
So if I'm in El Paso and I want to subscribe to El Diario de El Paso, and I go to the Diario de MX website and I type in my information and give them my address here on North Mesa Street, what happens next?
Si es que yo vivo en El Paso y yo me quiero suscribir a la edición de Diario del Paso y yo voy al sitio de internet Diario MX y yo entro ahí, le pongo mi información, mi domicilio aquí en la calle Mesa, ellos, I apologize, the interpreter requests the last portion of the question.
What would happen after I put my information in?
¿Qué es lo que ocurriría después de que yo pongo mi información ahí?
Transfiere al Diario del Paso.
It is transferred to Diario del Paso.
And what do you mean by transfer?
Permítame, cuando dice que se transfiere, ¿qué quiere decir? Gracias.
Se va la información al Diario del Paso.
The information will go to El Diario del Paso.
And can you pay for a subscription using your credit card online?
¿Puede usted pagar por una suscripción utilizando su tarjeta de crédito en línea?
No.
No.
Does El Diario de El Paso do business as El Diario de Juárez?
¿El Diario del Paso hace negocios como el Diario de Juárez?
No.
¿O a nombre del Diario de Juárez? No.
El Diario de El Paso do business as El Diario de Chihuahua.
¿El Diario del Paso hace negocio como el Diario de Chihuahua?
No.
No.
Has El Diario de El Paso ever registered anywhere that it does business as either El Diario de Juárez or El Diario de Chihuahua?
¿Acaso el Diario del Paso se ha registrado en alguna parte como haciendo negocios como el Diario de Juárez o Diario de Chihuahua?
No.
No.
When El Diario de El Paso orders newspapers to be printed by El Diario de Juárez, how is the purchase price calculated by El Diario de Juárez? How does it arrive at its bill?
Cuando el Diario del Paso ordena periódicos que se impriman por Diario de Juárez o que se compren, ¿cómo es que llega la factura de la compra de estos periódicos?
Dependiendo de las páginas que el Diario del Paso publique. Y la cantidad.
It depends on the pages that Diario del Paso publishes.
So El Diario del Paso is charged by the page.
Así que al Diario del Paso le cobran por hoja o por página.
Por página y por cantidad, sí.
Per page and per amount, yes.
And by amount, you mean circulation?
¿Y por cantidad se refiere usted al número de las circulaciones?
Sí.
Yes.
Is that for both the El Paso section and the Juárez section that goes in the El Paso paper?
Y eso incluye la sección de El Paso y la sección de Juárez que va dentro del periódico de El Paso?
¿Correcto?
Correct.
Correct me if I'm wrong, was your earlier testimony was that El Diario El Paso was created to provide articles of interest to El Paso readers?
Corríjame si me equivoco. ¿Acaso usted anteriormente en su testimonio dijo que el Diario del Paso se creó para proporcionar artículos de interés, noticias de interés para lectores en El Paso?
Correcto.
That's correct.
What readers does El Diario de Juárez target for its articles?
Y para los artículos que el Diario de Juárez publica, ¿a qué lectores va dirigidos?
A los lectores mexicanos, a la gente de Juárez.
Mexican readers, people from Juárez.
The advertisements that are placed in El Diario de Juárez from El Paso businesses, who are they targeted for?
Los anuncios que se ponen en el Diario de Juárez que hacen propaganda a negocios del Paso, ¿a quién van dirigidos?
Objection, speculation. Again, Judge, that's the business's intent of what market they want to reach. I mean, the witness has already established that El Diario de Juárez circulates in El Paso. I mean, I would think that an establishment in El Paso would think that would be the expectation for it to be publicized in both locations.
Is the question what those businesses, who are they targeting? Is that the question?
That's correct, Your Honor, because there's been some confusion on that.
Okay, well, that's speculation.
Well, if you look at the advertising and the, I can do it this.
Yeah, that's speculation.
You remember from the letter to El Paso Community College that was talked about earlier, El Diario de El Paso said it had about 21,000 subscribers. You recall that?
Recuerda, basado en la carta del Colegio de la Universidad Comunitaria del Paso que se puso anteriormente, que el Diario del Paso decía que tenía como 20,000 lectores, algo así, o suscripciones, algo así.
¿Sí lo recuerdo?
Yes, I remember.
And how many subscribers did Juárez have?
¿Y cuántos suscriptores tenía Juárez?
¿Cuántos suscriptores tiene Juárez?
In that same letter.
How many subscribers does Juárez have? Sí, y en esa misma carta.
We're going to give it 28, the last page.
Y es la prueba número 28 en la última hoja.
Hold on.
Last page.
Okay. What's the daily circulation for El Diario de Juárez?
¿Cuál es la circulación diaria para el Diario de Juárez?
$75,626.
75,626.
Wait,
Would it be more,
wait, hold on. Are you there?
yeah, can you see it?
The right exhibit?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
If I am West Texas Chop House, one of the restaurants that we looked at today, and I wanted to advertise in El Paso, would it be more expensive to put my ad in the Juarez paper or in the El Paso paper?
Objection, speculation, Judge. I mean, there's all these factors that go into publication. It's a half page, full page, quarter of a page. There's all these other issues, and there hasn't been any testimony on prices.
If I want,
He can testify on what he charges the businesses. He knows what he charges the Chop House, for advertising. That, I mean, he can testify about that. Is that what you're asking, Mr. Davis?
yeah, I'm asking, would it be more expensive and for the same ad in either paper to put it in a paper with 21,000 subscribers or one that has 75,000 subscribers?
What's it cost to publish in one versus the other? You know.
Sí, la pregunta es si yo fuera el restaurante Chop House de West Texas, que se había mencionado anteriormente en el testimonio y que se encuentra localizado en El Paso, ¿qué me costaría más según lo que usted cobra a los periódicos por anuncio? ¿Qué me costaría más el anunciarme en el periódico de Juárez o en el anunciarme en el periódico de El Paso? Es decir, en anunciarme en una publicación que tiene 21,000 suscripciones o una publicación que tiene 75,000 suscripciones según corresponde.
Y la respuesta es que cuesta más anunciarse en Juárez que en El Paso por la cantidad de la circulación.
And the answer is that it would be more costly to advertise in Juárez than in El Paso because of the amount of circulation.
So if I am an El Paso restaurant who wants to advertise in El Paso, you're saying it would be cheaper than to advertise directly with El Diario de El Paso.
Así que si yo fuera un negocio o restaurante del Paso que quisiera hacerme propaganda o hacer propaganda en El Paso, que sería más barato, me saldría más barato el hacer mi publicación en el Diario del Paso.
Correcto.
Correct.
In your experience, have you ever become aware of an El Paso business that wanted to target El Paso readers by placing its advertisement in the Juarez paper?
Según su conocimiento, según su experiencia de lo que ha escuchado, ¿usted se ha encontrado alguna vez con un negocio que se encuentre en El Paso que quiera hacerle propaganda a los lectores de El Paso y que quiera publicarse en el Diario de Juárez?
Judge, I object on hearsay and speculation. I think the question was based on what he has heard. That's hearsay. And again, it goes back to show what the actual intent of the advertiser would be.
Okay, is that your question, Mr. Davis? What somebody else heard?
Well, as he heard, Mr. Ortega has indicated that, gee, these people are going through Juarez to get to El Paso through their advertising or through classified ads. And I'm trying to show that's not what happens. And if he's never heard of someone, with that position, then I think that's relevant information. It's not hearsay because I think the answer is no.
No, that's not true.
Wait. Yeah. It sounds like you're asking for hearsay.
Okay.
That's what it sounds like to me.
It would not make any economic sense, would it, Mr. Rodriguez, to try to reach the El Paso readers of the Diario de El Paso by advertising in El Diario de Juarez, would it?
Señor Rodríguez, no tendría ningún sentido común desde el punto de vista económico el tratar de llegar a los lectores de El Paso al hacerse propaganda a través del Diario de Juárez, ¿o sí?
It's speculative, Judge. Again, I mean, it's all questions directed at the state of mind of advertisers and not focusing on questions related to the thought process of El Diario del Paso and El Diario de Juárez.
If he's asking the mindset of the buyer of the ad, yes. But
Not,
if, you know, if you're asking him based upon the publisher, they are the publishers. That's a different question.
and I'm asking, as the publisher, does it make any economic sense for an El Paso advertiser to reach El Diario de El Paso readers by placing a more expensive ad in El Diario de Juarez?
You can
That's
ask that. Oh, you can ask that.
Como el que se encarga de la publicación, tiene sentido económicamente de que un negocio de El Paso, tratando de llegar a los lectores de El Paso, haga publicación en un diario que le salía más caro, como es el Diario de Juárez.
I pass the witness.
No.
No questions for Mr. Rodriguez. Judge, out of an abundance of caution, plaintiff's response to the special appearances has 47 exhibits. Admittedly, I didn't go through all of the exhibits with the witness. I just like, as an abundance of caution, Judge, I know I've asked and tendered for the court to admit some exhibits, but I'd like for the court, I would offer all the exhibits that I haven't offered, that are exhibits 1 through 47 that I haven't offered.
Any objection, Mr. Davis?
I don't, I'm sorry, I've done a terrible job keeping track of what's been admitted. To the extent that we produce the document, I don't have an objection to it being admitted.
Okay,
I think
they're received.
Thank you, Judge. No questions.
Okay. Any other questions of this witness? Do we go on to the next one?
We go on to the next one, Your Honor.
Okay.
Is he logging on?
Okay,
He should be logging on right now.
okay.
There he is.
Okay.
Plaintiff called Josh Harden, Your Honor.
Josh Harden, raise your right hand. You swear testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. You're muted.
You're on mute, Josh.
We can't hear you. You're muted. There you go.
How's that?
Yes.
There.
Give us your first and last name for the court reporter, please.
Josh Harden,
And how do you spell your last name, sir?
Hardin.
How are you employed, Mr. Harden?
I am the owner of Harden Technology.
And what kind of business is Harden Technology?
We provide computer support for small businesses.
And how long have you been in that business?
With Harden Technology, I've been doing that for over 20 years.
And give us this court a little short bit of background about your IT experience, if you would, sir.
Well, it's been almost 30 years of IT experience, professional IT experience, most of which, of course, has been under my own company, providing small business support here in the region and a few places outside of El Paso. I have 7 certifications with Microsoft.
And I provided you earlier, sir, a copy of Plaintiff's Exhibit 6 that I know. We're going to pull that up. Can you see Exhibit 6, Mr. Harden?
I can.
Okay. And what is your understanding of what Exhibit 6 is?
Looks to me to be a website.
Okay. Now, also, did you go in my request to www.diariousa.com? And
Yes, sir, I did.
What happened when you did that?
I was immediately redirected to diario.mx.
And what does it mean to be immediately redirected? What impact does that have on the ability to use the website from which you were directed?
It means that the developer for the website had set up some DNS records that would redirect all traffic coming in from diariousa.com to be redirected to the site they wanted everyone to see, which was the content for diario.mx.
If, could you access any links from Diario, from that diariousa.com website from which you were directed?
I could access, yes, all their links, none of which pointed to the document that is on the screen now, though.
Okay. How did you find, how were you able, stop saying, what did you have to do to locate the document that's Exhibit 6?
I had to look at the URL at the very bottom of this document. It actually has the address, and I had to type out that entire URL with all, including all the subfolders and the specific file name.
In other words, you couldn't get it from the Diario USA website that you originally accessed.
No, sir, I could not.
Okay. So other than being aware of all of the files and information at the bottom of Exhibit 6, is there any other way to access that Exhibit 6?
Judge, I'd like to object. I don't know in what capacity Mr. Harton was brought in. He hasn't been designated as an expert witness in this case. And I don't think that I heard that he indicated, unless I missed this point, that he does work for El Diario del Paso or El Diario de Juárez.
I don't know, Mr. Davis.
I mean, I'm just hearing testimony from him and I don't know who he is.
Well, he's identified himself, and this came as a result of your representations to the court that Exhibit 6 was still on the diariousa.com website.
Not representations I made. Those were representations that your client made. Judge, Mr. Harden has not been designated as an expert witness. He's not a fact witness. He's not here to testify on any jurisdictional issues. I object to his testimony. He hasn't been designated as an expert witness, and I get it from the testimony that is being elicited from Mr. Davis that that's the capacity in which he's been brought in. I object to his testimony, and I ask that his testimony be struck and that he not be allowed to testify in that capacity.
Well, one,
Mr. Davis, in what capacity, what is he going to testify about? Why is he here?
he's here because Mr. Ortega told the court that Exhibit 6 was on the Diario USA website today if you were to look at it. That was false. The deadline to designate experts has not come and gone. There's no requirement at this point to designate an expert.
Well, that's correct, because we're talking about a jurisdiction. We're not discussing the merits of the case. Jurisdiction, you don't discuss the merits of the case. So
And all I have him say is that this document is the only way to find it is to either A, know all that information at the bottom of the page, and then the other way was what the question on the table when the objection came up.
okay, so he's here just to explain that to the court and for the record, correct?
That's it.
Okay, overruled. Go ahead.
Is there another way to access that information, Mr. Harden? That document, I mean?
The only practical way I can think of would be if someone had a really old bookmark that still referred to those links.
Pass the witness.
Counsel?
No questions.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Harden.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
If we can take a short break, Your Honor, I'm going to call Governor Corral and be my last witness.
Okay, all right. Let's take a 15-minute break. All right?
You got it.
2:45.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. 15-minute break.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, gentlemen. And Madam Counsel, I apologize. I don't see you. I
That's okay.
apologize.
Your Honor,
Accept my apologies, please.
Will do, Judge.
Okay, thank you.
start video. There we are.
Okay. Back on the record. Call your next witness, please.
I call Javier Corral.
Javier Corral,
Yes,
raise your right hand. You swear testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Madam Interpreter,
¿Jura usted que todo el testimonio que dará será la verdad, toda la verdad y nada más que la verdad bajo el amparo de Dios?
sí.
Yes.
give us your first and last name for the court reporter.
Por favor, denos su nombre y su apellido para la taquígrafa.
Yo soy Javier Corral Jurado.
I am Javier Corral Jurado.
Thank you, sir. Counsel.
Mr. Corral, you were recently the governor of Chihuahua, correct?
Señor Corral, hasta recientemente usted era el gobernador de Chihuahua, ¿correcto?
Así es, hasta el 7 de septiembre del año pasado.
That is correct, until September 7th of last year.
And you have sued my clients as a result of a series of articles published in El Diario de Juárez in 2019. Is that correct?
Y usted ha demandado a mis clientes a raíz de una serie de artículos que se publicaron en el 2019 en el Diario de Juárez, ¿correcto?
Así es, por varias notas difamatorias sobre mi persona, publicadas en el Diario de Juárez, en el Diario del Paso y en el Diario de Chihuahua.
Yes, because of several publications that were defamatory to myself, published in Diario de Juárez, Diario del Paso, and en el Diario de Chihuahua.
And all these articles were published while you were the governor, correct?
Todos estos artículos fueron publicados mientras usted era el gobernador, ¿correcto?
Correcto.
Correct.
I'm going to pull up Exhibit 9, please. We're going to pull up a photo for just reference purposes.
Vamos a poner una fotografía nada más con el propósito de hacer referencia a algo.
There it is. Okay. And Mr. Corral, the articles related to the property that's shown in the photograph that's on the screen now, correct?
Señor Corral, los artículos eran en referencia a la propiedad que se muestra en la pantalla actualmente, ¿correcto?
¿Es correcto?
That is correct.
And that's Defendant's Exhibit 9. Is that a true and correct representation of the house and the lot that are the subject of the lawsuit?
Y lo que se refleja en la prueba número 9 esto es se refleja correctamente y verdaderamente a lo que se refiere la demanda.
No sé a qué se refiere la fotografía.
I don't know what this photograph is referring to.
Okay, is that not a picture of the house that is the subject of the articles upon which you filed your lawsuit?
¿Acaso no es esta una fotografía de la casa sujeta a los artículos por los cuales usted presentó su demanda?
Ah, sí, por supuesto que sí.
Oh, yes, of course, right.
Your Honor, move to admit Exhibit 9.
Any objection?
I just want to make sure we've got the numbers right. Defendants attached to their reply to the special appearance 9 exhibits. I don't know if this would be 9 or 10, Mr. Davis, but if you want to submit it as 9, I have no problem.
Or just give it your own number, whatever number.
I'm not going to do much any other exhibits, Your Honor, so 9 is fine.
Okay, 9 is received.
Okay. And during your term as governor, did you reside in the house that's reflected in Exhibit 9?
Y durante su periodo como gobernador, ¿usted había estado viviendo en la casa que se refleja en la prueba número 9?
Ahí vivo cuando llegaba a Juárez.
That is where I stay when I would be in Juárez.
Okay. And during your term as governor, you were a resident of Juárez, were you not?
Y durante su periodo como gobernador, usted era residente domiciliado en Juárez, ¿no es así?
Así es.
That is right.
And for reference purposes, the house on the left side is the house that is the subject of the articles about you buying the house from an elderly woman, correct?
Y con el propósito de referencia a la casa que se encuentra del lado izquierdo es en la que se dicen los artículos que es la casa que usted compró de una mujer de edad avanzada, ¿correcto?
¿Correcto?
Correct.
And the articles about the lot that was in the probate court is the grass area behind the house, correct?
Y los artículos que hablan acerca del lote que se encontraba en la Corte de Testamentarías es la que está en la porción que tiene césped o pasto, ¿correcto?
¿No es así?
That is not correct.
Okay, where is the lot that was the subject of the articles about the case in probate?
¿Dónde se encuentra el lote que era lo que se trataban los artículos que se encontraban en la Corte de Testamentarías?
Judge, I'm going to object for lack of foundation. Mr. Davis is making reference to some type of probate proceeding that has not been brought about. So I object for lack of predicate foundation.
Your Honor, I'm just trying to have a visual that's correct for the stories. It is not my intent, Mr. Ortega, to get into the merits of the lawsuit or the article. I'm trying to be as bland as possible, just to identify properties, all I'm trying to do.
All right,
Understood.
go ahead.
¿Puede contestar?
Let's not get into the merits of this case. That's not for plea to the jurisdiction, okay?
Right, that's not what I intend to do.
Okay.
So where is the lot that is the subject of the articles upon which you have filed your lawsuit?
El lote en la que se refieren los artículos por el cual usted ha presentado su demanda, ¿dónde se encuentra?
Contiguo a la casa.
It is next to the house.
Can you identify where next to the house?
¿Y puede identificar usted en dónde contiguo a la casa?
Ahí en donde se aparece el área verde.
There where the green area shows.
The witnesses that relate to the house sale, they all live in Juarez, correct?
Y los testigos en relación a la casa, todos ellos viven en Juárez, ¿correcto?
Objection, relevance.
What's the yes, go ahead, Counsel, Madam Interpreter.
Protesta por pertinencia al caso.
Okay.
I'll move
Where-
on here.
Okay, yeah, where are we going with that question? Okay.
Well, I'm just trying to identify where the jurisdiction should lie in this case based upon what El Diario de Juarez did versus maybe what El Diario de El Paso did. Well, I can approach this in a different way.
Yeah, let's not get into the merits, okay?
I heard at the last hearing, Mr. Corral, that you are an American citizen. Is that correct?
Según la audiencia última que tuvimos, señor Corral, yo escuché que usted es ciudadano estadounidense, ¿es correcto eso?
Tengo la ciudadanía norteamericana también.
And I am also a U.S. citizen, yes.
Okay.
Okay, hold on. Let me just, you're a dual citizen, is that what you're saying, Mr. Mr. Corral Jurado?
Señor Corral Jurado, para clarificación del juez, el juez pregunta, ¿usted tiene la ciudadanía dual? ¿Es lo que quiere decir?
Así es, tengo la doble nacionalidad, la nacionalidad americana y la nacionalidad mexicana. Desde 1997, en México se reconoció la doble nacionalidad, incluso la múltiple nacionalidad, sin consecuencias para una persona.
And that is correct. I am a dual citizen of the United States and of Mexico. And since 1997 in Mexico, the dual citizenship was acknowledged, actually multiple citizenship without any consequences to an individual.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Sí, señor.
Yes, sir.
The El Diario de Juarez articles were published in Juarez, were they not?
Los artículos del Diario de Juárez se publicaron en Juárez, ¿no es así?
Así es, y se reproducen y se circulan en el Paso al mismo tiempo, encartados en el Diario del Paso, pero también se publicaron en el Diario del Paso como quedó acreditado en las pruebas que presentó mi abogado.
That is correct. And they were also circulated and produced or reprinted in Diario del Paso, and they were inserted as part of Diario del Paso, but also they were published in Diario del Paso in itself, as it shows in the evidence that my attorney presented.
Why was this suit not filed in Juarez?
¿Y por qué la demanda no se presentó en Juárez?
Objection, Judge. There's a forum, there's a motion to dismiss for forum nonconvenience, and that has absolutely nothing to do with jurisdictional issues. We object on relevance.
Sustain.
That's much more. Okay. Other than being an insert in the El Paso paper, are you aware of anything that El Diario de Juarez did to publish the complaint about articles in El Paso?
Aparte de ser un encarte en el periódico del Diario del Paso, ¿está usted enterado de que sí hubo publicaciones en cuanto a lo que se quejaba del Diario del Paso?
¿Me podría repetir la pregunta porque se perdió al final el sentido?
Could you repeat the question? I did not understand the end of it.
Other than being an insert in El Diario de El Paso, can you tell the court what El Diario de Juarez did in Texas to defame you?
Aparte de ser un inserto en el periódico del Diario del Paso, ¿puede usted decirle a este juez qué es lo que hizo el Diario de Juárez para difamarlo?
Objection on speculation against Judge. I mean, whatever El Diario del Paso did, it's not anything that Mr. Corral, I'm assuming, would have any personal knowledge.
Well,
Repeat your question, counsel.
Mr. Corral has testified that El Diario de Juarez defamed him in Juarez, and that El Diario de El Paso had that paper, the El Diario de Juarez paper, as an insert, and that it also referred to other articles, so that was something El Paso did. I'm just trying to verify that all he's complaining about in this lawsuit is about El Diario de Juarez is the defamation by publication in Mexico.
He's already testified that he's complaining about the publication of El Diario de Juárez and the republication of those articles by El Diario del Paso in the state of Texas.
Answer the question, please.
Y conteste la pregunta, por favor. ¿Quiere que se la repitan?
Por favor.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Other than being an insert in El Diario de El Paso, what do you allege that El Diario de Juarez did in Texas to defame you?
Aparte de ser un inserto en el periódico del Diario del Paso, ¿qué es lo que, según usted, hizo el Diario de Juárez para difamarlo a usted en Texas?
Bueno, aquí el Diario de Juárez tiene un impacto de circulación muy importante. Yo creo que incluso circula más en El Paso que en Ciudad Juárez, según los números que aquí se han dado a conocer. Hay una circulación de más de 24,000 ejemplares que llegan no solamente a ciudadanos americanos, llegan fundamentalmente a un público hispano. Aquí hay miles de juarenses viviendo en El Paso. En primer lugar, para darle la oportunidad a la traductora y voy a extenderme en esta respuesta.
Well, it's in regards to the amount of publication, El Diario de Juárez has a huge impact due to its publication here in El Paso, and it has a huge number of publications apart from the 24,000 printed newspapers that circulate. It reaches American audience as well as the huge number of the Hispanic population in El Paso. And I am going to give the opportunity to the interpreter to interpret that, and then I will elaborate in my answer.
De hecho, miles de estos juarenses que viven en El Paso votan en Ciudad Juárez, en el estado de Chihuahua.
As a matter of fact, thousands of these citizens from Juárez that live in El Paso vote in the state of Chihuahua.
Amigos, familiares, se dieron cuenta de las difamaciones de este periódico aquí en Estados Unidos.
friends and relatives found out about the slander of this newspaper here in the United States,
en donde yo no tenía ninguna oportunidad de responder, de aclarar, de defenderme, lo hicieron con absoluto dolo, con absoluta impunidad, como con la que actúan permanentemente en México.
in which I did not have any opportunity to respond, to defend myself, to give an answer, and they did it with the absolute purpose of, to do it with guilt, to do it with the purpose of damaging me in Mexico.
De hecho, las informaciones que aquí se circularon por el Diario de Juárez tenían un llamado siempre en primera plana en el Diario del Paso, porque ya hemos visto que son una sola cosa, son la misma cosa, circulan juntos. Donde va el Diario del Paso, ha dicho su vicepresidente, va el Diario de Juárez, es la misma concepto de periódico. La gente no sabe si es un encarte o es una adición fuera. Lo que la gente sabe es que recibe un solo periódico en el que un periódico da a conocer la información en primera plana de lo que está dentro del otro.
As a matter of fact, the publication from Diario de Juárez appears here on the first page of the newspaper. And as the vice president of this newspaper stated, it is an insert in the Diario del Paso, in the newspaper from here, that circulates. However, the people are not aware of whether it's one paper or the other or two papers. They receive one paper and they take it as one publication, which is the news that they receive. And it is distributed, all this information, in the first page of this paper.
Y usted me ha pedido que le informe al juez sobre el impacto y el daño. Aquí hay gente que compra el diario por el Diario de Juárez, más que por el Diario del Paso.
And you have asked me to explain to the judge about the impact and the damage of this. There are people here that buy Diario de Juárez, Diario del Paso, just to get the newspaper from Diario de Juárez.
Por eso está lleno de publicidad del Paso, el Diario de Juárez.
Object, Your Honor, this is non-responsive. I asked what El Diario de Juárez did.
Sustain.
Yeah.
Y protesta su señoría, esta no es parte de la contestación. Yo pregunté el daño que hizo el Diario de Juárez. Esta protesta se avala.
I pass the witness.
Paso la palabra.
Mr. Ortega.
No questions.
Okay.
One housekeeping matter, Your Honor, Mr. Ortega referred to the forum non-convenience. I've been trying to get him to agree to a date to actually have a hearing on that. The court has given us February 15th, 16th, or 17th. I'd like to get that set if we could before we leave today.
Okay. I was discussing with my court coordinator just a few minutes ago when this case was going to trial. And, you know, you have a date sometime in the fall, correct?
Correct.
October.
Okay. Counsel, I am retiring in December 31st of this year. That's it for me. There are three candidates. Should one of those candidates, Ms. Baeza, she is, if we can't try it on that date and you have to try it on another date, keep in mind that one of those individuals, if she wins, is your partner, Mr. Ortega. And so.
He's sure she can be fair, Your Honor.
I'm sorry?
He's sure she can be fair.
Okay.
Yeah, Judge, I have received some proposed dates from defendant's counsel's office. I will respond to him today. I explained to Ms. Canales that there were some personal issues in my office related to COVID, and that has made it a little bit more difficult for me to be responsive on that specific issue. I will reply today on the dates available, but I suspect that it's something that could be done at the earliest convenience because there's no one here more than my client that wishes to have this case be heard in front of a jury. So there won't be delay on our behalf.
If we try this case, the amount in controversy is, you've pled what, Mr. Ortega?
I know that under defamation, libel, and slander, we would be able to request for punitive damages. I would need to resort back to plaintiff's first amended petition to refresh my recollection, but I think it's, if it's not between 200,000 and $1 million, it's probably over $1 million.
Okay. The reason why I'm asking is it is going to be difficult because of COVID to try to get a large panel, members of an ire persons to conduct voir dire. And I know I can try the case if you can agree to 6 jurors. This is a statutory county court, even though I have a concurrent jurisdiction with district courts. I am still a statutory county court at law. And if the amount in controversy is less than 250,000, I can use 6 by statute in the government code. I can use 6. But if it's more than $250,000 in question, we need 12, unless you agree, just like in federal court, when you try cases in federal court, counsel, civil cases, you use 6 jurors, correct?
That's correct.
Well, this isn't a federal court, but I mean, if, we can try this case with 6 jurors, if you agree in writing. If not, then I'm going to have to get in line to see if I can get one of the larger, the commissioner's court, the 12th floor across the hall from the 8th Court of Appeals. And I don't know when they're going to open up Liberty Hall. Liberty Hall would be awkward, but those are the only 3, and that's the problem. That's the problem, counsel.
Understood, Judge, and I could certainly confer with counsel for defendants if we get to that point, so we could see if we could enter into some type of stipulation. But we're very mindful of the current situation with COVID, and we're certainly hopeful, as the court is, that by October, we're not going to be having these issues.
Okay. All right. Anything else, gentlemen?
Just closing if you want it, Your Honor.
Pardon?
Just closing if you want to hear closing argument.
Judge, I don't have any closing. We've taken up 2 days of the court's time. You've been exceedingly patient, Judge.
If I don't want to cut off Mr. Davis. I mean, I don't.
I'll make it as brief as I can, Your Honor. I'm not known for that.
All right.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack here, and I understand the court's predilection with regards to jurisdiction already, and I'm respectful of it. But I would submit respectfully that the case law parses these questions a little deeper than what you may have seen in the evidence today. You heard Mr. Corral just testify that you would see these defamatory articles on the front page of Diario del Paso, and that this was done to damage him in Mexico. Those are 2 very important statements as we close. First, entities matter. These are separate corporations with their own existence, their own bank accounts. The personal jurisdiction that's available to plaintiffs to assert against us is limited by both Texas law and federal law. And we've talked about general jurisdiction before, Your Honor. If you recall, Mr. Corral, Mr. Ortega, I know he hates me quoting this, says it'd be real difficult to prove general jurisdiction. Well, the U.S. Supreme Court agrees with him. In the Daimler case cited in our pleadings, the Supreme Court said it would be an exceptional case in which a company's activities in a state other than its principal place of business or formal place of incorporation might be so substantial and of such a nature as to render the corporation at home in the other state, which was the standard for general jurisdiction. Okay, so then you have to look at specific jurisdiction. And the law in the U.S. Supreme Court and in Texas is when you look at specific jurisdiction, the conduct that gives jurisdiction has to be that of the entity in the other state. It can't be, you can't get jurisdiction of El Diario de Juarez because of the actions of El Diario de El Paso. The Daimler case says that. In Daimler, the plaintiff sued a foreign corporation based on the activity of its U.S. subsidiary. And the court said that subsidiary can't create jurisdiction against the foreign parent. I've cited the Michiana case and the Moncrief Oil case in my papers. Those are 2005 and 2012 Supreme Court cases, Texas. And they say only the actions of the non-resident can give rise to general or specific jurisdiction. They also say that a non-resident who might direct a tort from afar, that's not sufficient to confer specific jurisdiction, okay? The reason I asked Mr. Corral about his residency is if the plaintiff is not a resident of Texas, Texas has much less interest in establishing jurisdiction than if it was a resident of, if it was a resident of Texas. He said he was not a resident of Texas, okay? Starting with before the Daimler case, the U.S. Supreme Court has been reducing the scope of due process for long-arm jurisdiction. In the Bristol-Myers Squibb case, I cited paragraph 35, the U.S. Supreme Court, it's a case where Bristol-Myers Squibb was sued to state court by a group of plaintiffs who were not California residents in California, stating that they were injured by a drug sold by Bristol-Myers Squibb, okay? California Supreme Court denied general jurisdiction, granted specific jurisdiction, and the Supreme Court of the United States reversed, saying, no, you don't have sufficient specific jurisdiction because the conduct of the non-residents were not related to the connections to California. In that case, Bristol-Myers Squibb had 5 research facilities with 160 employees, a state government advocacy office, 250 sales reps, all in California. And what the Supreme Court said is, that's fine, but none of that had anything to do with the harm that these plaintiffs suffered. Okay, that's important here because we spent a lot of time the last couple of days on advertising. Advertising has nothing to do with the complaints being asserted by the plaintiff. He's talking about journalism, the reporting, the fact that Texas residents, Texas businesses want to go to Mexico to tap that market, which is what is occurring, doesn't give rise to specific jurisdiction. Okay, and on our long arm statute in Texas, you got to have one of 3 things: committing a tort in Texas, recruiting Texas residents to work outside of Texas. We don't have either of those things. And a contract with a Texas resident performable in Texas. Okay. I don't think you have a long arm statute. The only agreement is the agreement 1 that says we authorize you to go get contracts to put advertising in Mexico. That's not a contract that says you have to do anything, you're selling anything. It says we authorize you. The contacts that we have in the exhibits are this: histories and articles that predate the creation of the El Paso paper 2005, much less the Juarez paper in 2010. The website by Diario USA, which is owned by Editora Paso de USA, which is not even a party, that can only be found by a deep dive into the internet or actual knowledge of it, of that specific website. Lawsuits that predate the creation of the Juarez entity by years. Contracts, UTEP and El Paso Community College, that are signed by El Paso, not signed by PEI. Okay. PEI is targeting its ads and its stories to Juarez customers. That's really important. PEI following the due process statute, has no office, no employees, no Texas phone number, no editor, and no reporters in Texas. Okay. Now, and I also want to point out that the Moncrief case, if you cited, says the test, the jurisdictional test is much tougher when the defendant is an out of the country party as opposed to an out of the state party. Okay. Now, the specific claim must be based on defendant's purposeful activity within the state. All right. Again, no one else. I referred last time we talked about the Moki Mac case. I got the facts a little bit wrong, but in that case, the Moki Mac was an outfitter in Utah that advertised in Texas. And somebody went to Utah to do wild and adventurous things, which I'm way too old to do anymore. And this guy fell and got killed, and they sued him in Texas. And the court said they solicited customers in Texas. So there would be specific jurisdiction on that, but the harm was in Utah. And that's where the claim arose. Mr. Corral testified we were damaging him in Mexico. These articles were tailored to Mexican citizens about their governor in Juarez. That's why those articles are in El Diario de Juarez.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Davis. The plaintiff is taking the position, and Mr. Ortega has indicated that and Mr. Corral Jurado has indicated that there is a large Mexican population here in this border city, and many of them have dual citizenship. Many of them have lawful permanent resident status, and so they're residing in El Paso. He's saying that he was defamed, and the individuals who were reading these articles or read this article or articles are the same individuals that I'm, addressing. Individuals with dual citizenship. They live here in the city of El Paso, state of Texas, and there's a large population. You know that, and I know that.
I do.
That's the population that this gentleman is saying read these articles. That's what I think he's saying, and there is a large population here.
And that's a good question, and I'll get right to that, Your Honor.
Okay.
So under that, first of all, Juarez, as we said, targets Juarez. El Paso brings the paper and to El Paso. Mr. Ortega calls it republication liability. But that's not something that Juarez did. They call it in their response something like, this is a stream of commerce case, and they cite the Spear Star case for that proposition. That's not quite what it says. What Spear Star says, and what you're talking about for stream of commerce, and there's really two components, and this is the first one. The court, Texas Supreme Court in 2010, in that case said, a seller's awareness that the stream of commerce may or will sweep the product into the forum state does not convert the mere act of placing the product in the stream as an act purposely directed to the forum state. Okay? If you have to have additional conduct. For an example, the examples they used in this case, citing the Asahi case in the U.S. Supreme Court, say, one, designing the product for the market in the forum state. Clearly not here, it's designed for Juarez. Advertising in the forum state. Establishing channels for providing regular advice to customers in the forum state. None of those additional things have taken place to make this a stream of commerce case. So let's talk about it as a publication case. And this is called TBS Tech. I got more stickies on it than the other ones. It's a recent 2016 case. Texas talking about, the Supreme Court talking about defamation jurisdiction.
Texas Supreme Court or US Supreme Court?
This is Texas Supreme Court, 2016. Okay. So the court knows better than I do maybe who Gloria Trevi was, famous singer.
Yes.
And she was accused in the 90s of being with underage girls for other people, was arrested, spent time in prison in 2 different countries, and eventually a mixed Mexican judge dismissed all the charges. At around the 10-year anniversary of all of that, various Mexican media outlets ran stories about those stories, okay? The Texas Supreme Court found specific jurisdiction in this case, and I'll tell you why in a minute. So, but it also addresses some of the plaintiffs' US Supreme Court cases about why a publication in another state can give jurisdiction in the other state. For example, Hustler, they said, Hustler put 15,000 of its magazines directly in that other state, and that was New Hampshire, and I said, that's specifically targeting it. You put 15,000, not an intermediary, you did it. In the Calder versus Jones case, the Supreme Court said minimum context exists if the state is the focus of the article's subjects and sources, i.e. Texas, and the defendant knew that the brunt of the injury would occur there. That's what Calder says, and that's how the Texas Supreme Court interpreted Calder, again, one of plaintiff's cases. That was an actress, I can't remember her name, Shirley Jones, and the Supreme Court said that state where she lived, which was California, had to be the focus of the article. In that case, California was the biggest location for the number of the publications that were sold was in that California, and they knew she was there, and that was where she would be harmed. Mr. Corrado said we were damaging him in Mexico. Okay. Supreme Court said that plaintiff must purposely avail itself of the privilege of conducting activities within the forum state, thus invoking the benefits of its laws and protections. No evidence that Ariel Dorado de Juarez has done those things. That's invoked the laws of the state of Texas for its own benefit or protection. Okay. The relationship between the foreign state must arise out of the context that the defendant itself has created, not a subsidiary. Okay. In this case, there was a lot of hoopla about broadcasting because these were radio stations and TV stations that were on the edge of South Texas and broadcasting and going over where people could hear them. Okay. And the court said, that's not enough. That doesn't get you there because the defendant couldn't reasonably anticipate that public, things that it sent in the airwaves in Mexico would require it to be sued in Texas. That's not it. Foreseeability is an important consideration in the analysis. And it really goes to fairness. If you can't foresee that you'd be sued, Juarez would be sued in Texas for its Juarez articles. El Paso can be sued in Texas for its articles. Well, why would Juarez anticipate that it could be sued? And whose law applies? They're writing these articles in Mexico. Is it Mexican defamation law? They have no idea they'll be brought into Texas. The Supreme Court, and as Tech has said, there's jurisdiction because, one, the defendants themselves, not a subsidiary or an agent, had a business office and a production studio in Texas. That the defendants physically entered Texas to promote their broadcasts, to get publicity, to have more people watch the broadcast in Texas. They hired a Texas employee to expand their broadcasts in Texas. We have none of those kinds of things in this one. Okay. Supreme Court said in that case, they're talking about the relationship entities, because not all the entities was their jurisdiction. The Supreme Court said, we have noted before, a non-resident may purposely avoid a particular jurisdiction by structuring its transactions so as to neither profit from the forum's laws nor be subject to its jurisdiction. That's what we have here. No evidence that Juarez has profited from the laws of the state of Texas, and it's invoked the benefits of the state of Texas, invoked the benefits of doing business in the state of Texas. So it's not subject under specific jurisdiction to the laws. The Supreme Court gave us in this case, read my own handwriting, Judge. For a state to exercise jurisdiction consistent with due process, the defendants, again, not the other parties, suit-related conduct must create the connection with the forum state. There is no, under TVS TECA, there's no specific jurisdiction for what Juarez has done. El Diario brought the papers over. It has liability if they're defamatory, but Juarez had no expectation that it should or could be sued in the state of Texas. And if you look at, one of the last things that you look at in these cases is fairness. And due process has a fairness component to fairness and justice. The burden on the defendant, the interest of the forum in adjudicating the dispute, the international judicial system's interest in obtaining the most efficient resolution of controversies, and the shared interest in furthering substantial social policies. And when the defendant is a citizen of another country, you also specifically look at the unique burdens placed on the defendant who must defend itself in a foreign legal system, the state's regulatory interests, and the procedural and substantive policies of other nations whose interests are affected by the action. El Paso has consented to jurisdiction in Mexico for a lawsuit against it. Under the Texas long-arm statute, under due process, the case law, and under the fairness test, plaintiff has satisfied none of those, Your Honor. Juarez has done nothing to generate specific jurisdiction against it. PPDN is simpler. In just a minute, I can tell you that. There's three kinds of websites for internet activity. Websites that are used to transact business at specific jurisdiction. Passive websites used only for advertising, and interactive websites that allow for the exchange of information. A passive website, which is used A, only to advertise, and B, to provide contact information, which is what PPDN does, there is no jurisdiction, okay? And there's a 2020 5th District Court of Appeals case called Shop Style, Your Honor, right on point that says that a special appearance filed by a company whose website involved the use of hyperlinks that took viewers to the websites of third parties where that consumer could purchase goods, there is no specific jurisdiction for that. That's what I have.
Your Honor, if you want to respond, I could give you a response. I don't know if that's going to sway the court. I know the court has already indicated, at least at the outset, that it was thinking about rejecting the defendant's special appearances. If there's anything that I need to address, I could certainly do that.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and address the issues that he's brought up, counsel? I mean, you can do it in a response, written response, and I'll read it, and then we'll go from there.
I could give you an argument now, Judge, and I think it'll take me
that's fine. That's fine.
less than 15 minutes. I know
All
time
right.
is precious.
Go ahead. I'm not pushing you. You've got time.
I understand that, Judge, and I appreciate that. So if we go back to the standard, as the court well knows, the Texas long-arm statute allows courts to exercise personal jurisdiction over a non-resident who commits a tort in whole or in part in this state. There should not be any doubt in anybody's mind that El Diario de Juárez circulates, distributes, and sells its newspaper in El Paso. Mr. Rodriguez Jimenez repeatedly testified to that fact. If El Diario de Juárez reaches the state of Texas and the hands of Texas readers with defamatory articles, then that tort is committed in whole or in part in this state. You heard the testimony from the governor that he has suffered harm here, that he has known of individuals who have communicated to him that they are aware of the publications made by El Diario del Paso and El Diario de Juárez in El Paso County. Now, for purposes of specific jurisdiction, we have to establish minimum contacts. A defendant must have purposefully availed itself of the privilege of conducting activities with the forum state, thus invoking the benefits and protections of its law. To constitute purposeful availment, the defendant's contacts must be purposefully directed to the state. So there's no doubt here, Judge, that the defendants have actually targeted this state. In fact, you heard from Mr. Rodriguez Jimenez, despite the fact that he tried to deny this fact when presented with questions by his attorney, El Diario de Juárez has an office in El Paso. You saw that on page 2 of El Diario de Juárez, where El Diario de Juárez specifically states that it has an office in various places in the state of Chihuahua, including in El Paso, Texas. They include that 915 area code phone number in El Paso, Texas. That is not only stated in El Diario de Juárez's own newspaper every single day, but even on the classified ads, they keep referencing that El Paso office. Now, Mr. Rodriguez Jimenez talked about the fact that there is a symbiotic relationship between these two newspapers. You saw the publication that, that we got based on a newspaper stand in El Paso County that shows El Diario de Juárez plus El Diario de Juárez equals one newspaper. That's how they market themselves. They have an office in Texas. They have a phone number with the County of El Paso area code. Mr. Rodriguez Jimenez testified that he, his father, and siblings, all of whom are officers, shareholders, and directors of El Diario de Juárez in one form or another, reside in Texas. Mr. Rodriguez Jimenez testified that he is employed by El Diario del Paso, but also receives compensation from El Diario de Juárez for services that he performs in this state. In fact, his testimony was that he wanted that El Diario del Paso seeks reimbursement for the services that he provides for El Diario de Juárez in the state of Texas. These are services that he performs in the state as an employee for both newspapers, and he receives part of his compensation from El Diario de Juárez, despite the fact that he's performing these services in this state. Mr. Rodriguez Jimenez also testified and admitted under oath that El Diario de Juárez has a bank account with Westar Bank, which, as the court knows, is a local bank in El Paso County. El Diario de Juárez, as Mr. Rodriguez Jimenez testified, follows El Diario del Paso anywhere El Diario del Paso goes. I asked him in cross-examination if that meant that El Diario de Juárez reached over 20,000 people per day in El Paso County. His testimony was yes. That newspaper circulated, distributed, and sold as one newspaper with El Diario del Paso in El Paso County. Mr. Rodriguez Jimenez also testified that El Diario de Juárez receives compensation for the publicity that is paid by El Paso businesses and institutions. El Diario de Juárez receives, according to Mr. Rodriguez Jimenez, 70%, the bulk sum of all publicity obtained in El Paso that is jointly published in El Diario del Paso and El Diario de Juárez. They want to tell you, Judge, despite all the evidence and the testimony that you've seen, that El Diario de Juárez does not circulate in El Paso County. They want to tell you, despite the evidence that you've seen, that El Diario de Juárez makes no business in the state of Texas. Yet they have a bank account in El Paso for that specific purpose, to receive 70% of the profits that are derived from Texas businesses, institutions, and subscribers of El Diario de Juárez. And you've seen, because we've shown you, that El Diario de Juárez for years has published articles and advertisements and classified ads of Texas businesses, establishments, and residents. We showed you the website in Diario Digital. They want to tell you, Judge, despite what you saw, that Diario Digital is merely a passive website. That's not the case. The website that you saw is an interactive website. You saw, Judge, as part of the exhibits that have been admitted in this hearing, that Diario Digital allows Texas residents to interact with that website, include their contact information, and have the option to subscribe to that newspaper. Now, Mr. Rodriguez Jimenez testified that they've been having some issues because presumably the readership is older and they're not tech savvy like a younger generation, but that does not take away from the purposeful availment and the target, the intentional target of El Diario del Paso and Diario de Juárez and Diario Digital to purposefully and intentionally target Texas residents. That website, which he admitted was an error, his own website, allows individuals in Texas to receive a physical copy of El Diario de Juárez in the comfort of their home or in the comfort of their business. That's what their website said. Now, Mr. Rodriguez Jimenez again says, well, that's an error. Thank you, Mr. Ortega, for pointing that out. We'll go ahead and fix it. But that's beyond the fact. He is a shareholder in that corporation for years, and so is his father. And now they want to tell you, Judge, that it's a mistake, despite the fact that that's what the website says. That website also publishes advertisements and classified ads, as the court saw, to this date, of El Paso businesses, establishments, and residents. When asked, how long has that taken place? Mr. Rodriguez Jimenez said, for years. He couldn't remember specifically, but he said it had been years that Diario Digital had been used for that specific purpose. It's not a passive website. It is a website that is used as a tool to lure in purposefully Texas businesses, establishments, and residents. We showed you just as a small sample of the many contracts that are out there with Texas businesses, establishments, and residents that show you how El Diario de Juárez, in conjunction with El Diario del Paso, purposefully use as a marketing tool Diario Digital and show that they could have many ads and many publications show up on a repeated basis on Diario Digital. They're using that website intentionally and purposefully to try to target residents and businesses in our state. Now, the same is true with Vamos. They testified that Vamos is a publication that is edited, prepared, published, and printed by El Diario de Juárez. Judge, you said on day one of this special appearance hearing that you yourself have even seen this publication in El Paso establishments. This is a widely known fact. Vamos is a publication that's prepared by El Diario de Juárez, as you saw from the directory page on the second page of that publication, that shows you that El Diario de Juárez prepares it. But how does it land in El Paso? Through the symbiotic relationship that it has with El Diario del Paso. Mr. Rodriguez Jimenez testified in his own words under oath that El Diario del Paso acts as an advertisement or publicity agent. Words have meaning, Judge. An agent. That's someone that has the ability to act on behalf of a principal, to bind the principal. This is not El Diario del Paso acting rogue without any type of direction from its principal, El Diario de Juárez. We showed you as Exhibit 1 in our response to the special appearance that there's a contract between El Diario del Paso and El Diario de Juárez. You saw that translation. You saw that Mr. Rodriguez Jimenez admitted under oath that one newspaper has the ability to contract on behalf of the other. Why are they doing this? I don't know if they're seeking to avoid a tax issue, Judge. I don't know what it is, but this is something that they've schemed up to try to, I think, protect themselves from jurisdiction or probably tax purposes. But El Diario de Juárez touches American soil every single day. It's been that way for years. And they've even decided to memorialize their working relationship, if you want to believe it, as of January 1, 2018, of how one party has the ability to contract on behalf of the other for many things. And we showed you contracts, Judge, so you could see how that actually played out in real time. Now, Mr. Davis talked about certain cases, and I want to address those cases. I know I had an opportunity to present these cases to the court on day one, but it's important, I think, Judge, to go back and revisit them because I think a lot has been, I believe, inadvertently misstated. These are cases from the United States Supreme Court involving personal jurisdiction issues for defamation cases. Mr. Davis spent a significant amount of time talking about cases that don't have anything to do with defamation. Defamation is a specific tort. It's an intentional tort, as the court knows. In Calder versus Jones, which is a 1984 decision by the US Supreme Court, Shirley Jones, the actress, filed suit in California for defamation based on statements made by the National Enquirer. Because the Enquirer sold nearly twice as many copies in California, they knew that the brunt of the injury would be suffered by her in that state. The court concluded that the reporter and editor must reasonably anticipate being hailed into court there in California to answer for the truth of the statements made in their article. It mattered where the article was published. The same was true in Keaton versus Hustler magazine, a 1984 decision by the United States Supreme Court. There, to controvert what you heard from defendants, a New York resident filed a defamation suit in New Hampshire against the publisher of Hustler magazine, an Ohio corporation with headquarters in California. The key here, Judge, is that the plaintiff was a New York resident, an out-of-state defendant. Defendants make a big deal about the fact that the plaintiff does not reside and is not domiciled in the state of Texas. The US Supreme Court dealt with that issue in Keaton. A New York resident filed a defamation suit in New Hampshire against Hustler magazine that was headquartered in Ohio and headquartered in California. In other words, New Hampshire was not the principal place of business or the place of incorporation of Hustler magazine. It was Ohio as a place of incorporation and California as the principal place of business. In Keaton, the plaintiff, a New York resident, filed a suit in New Hampshire. Although the defendant's only contact with New Hampshire consisted of a monthly magazine sale, the court concluded that the distribution of some 10,000 to 15,000 copies of Hustler magazine in that state each month could not by any stretch of the imagination be characterized as random, isolated, or fortuitous. That is 10 to 15,000 copies a month. That's less than the circulation of El Diario del Paso and El Diario de Juárez jointly sold in our community. Despite the fact that it was only 10 to 15,000 copies of that magazine, the court thought and held that the defendants could not by any stretch of the imagination be characterized as random, isolated, or fortuitous. The court viewed this as evidence that the defendant chose to enter the New Hampshire market, and it found itself to be sufficient to support an assertion of jurisdiction in a libel action based on the contents of the magazine. Noting that New Hampshire had a significant interest in redressing injuries that actually occur within the state because the publication reached New Hampshire soil. That was the issue that the court focused on. The tort of libel is generally held to occur wherever the offending material is circulated. There is no dispute in this case that El Diario de Juárez is circulated, distributed, and sold in El Paso County. The evidence is overwhelmingly clear and uncontroverted. The court And Keaton went on to conclude that because the defendant had continuously and deliberately exploited the New Hampshire market, it must reasonably anticipate being hailed into court in that state for a libel action based on the contents of the magazine. That is the case here. Defendant's counsel addressed the Gloria Trevi case, which is a 2016 case from the Texas Supreme Court. In that case, the court found personal jurisdiction against the Mexican national broadcast station and television host who allegedly defamed that Mexican singer in Texas. There, the plaintiff alleged that defendants defamed her in broadcast in Mexico that aired in Texas. Now, the issue there, Judge, was the fact that TV Azteca complained that you can't control broadcasting waves. They don't respect jurisdictions. They flow in space. So they argued that those transmissions were random, fortuitous, and isolated. The Texas Supreme Court disagreed. In that case, the defendants were either Mexican corporations or residents, as here. So you had defendants that were Mexican corporations or residents. Neither had offices, employees, representatives, nor agents in Texas, and neither defendant had previously been a party to a lawsuit in Texas. Those facts are much harsher and bleaker than the facts in our case, because we've shown you that El Diario de Juárez does have an office, employees, representatives, and agents in Texas, and that they've been previously parties to lawsuit in this state. Regardless, the Texas Supreme Court still found that defendants had sufficient minimum contacts and purposefully avail themselves of the benefits and privileges of the state of Texas. In reaching this conclusion, the court found that defendants had intentionally targeted Texas through those broadcasts by, among other things, targeting its products to Texas residents and making advertisements of Texas businesses for Texas consumers. Judge, this case is square on point. Mr. Rodriguez Jimenez did not deny the fact that El Diario de Juárez purposefully and intentionally targets Texas residents, businesses, and establishments. Mr. Rodriguez Jimenez did not deny that El Diario de Juárez publishes advertisements of Texas businesses and establishments. Mr. Rodriguez Jimenez did not deny that El Diario de Juárez publishes classified ads of residents in El Paso County. Mr. Rodriguez Jimenez did not deny the fact that El Diario de Juárez receives compensation in its Texas-based bank for payment of the publications that it receives for the advertisements of Texas businesses and establishments. You heard that from him. I frankly don't understand the argument of El Diario de Juárez. They sought to remove admissions about how they purchased the newspaper El Diario de Juárez and circulated in El Paso. They're trying to, I think, make you believe, Judge, that somehow El Diario de Juárez is basically a Kinko in Ciudad Juárez, that all they do is basically print pages and sell those pages to El Diario de El Paso so they could bring them over innocently and sold and circulated in our city. That's not the case. We showed you invoices of these transactions, of how El Diario del Paso buys these newspapers. They're not getting printing services, they're buying those newspapers. But more importantly, for purposes of personal jurisdiction, I think the court could see that El Diario de Juárez knows that those papers are going to hit Texas soil. Mr. Rodriguez Jimenez told you that. He told you how El Diario del Paso sends drivers to pick those newspapers up and cross those papers to El Paso, specifically to the offices of El Diario del Paso. Once they touch American soil, Mr. Rodriguez Jimenez told you that those newspapers are then circulated widely among Texas businesses, establishments, and residents. Now, I bring to your attention as a final point Spur Star, which is a Texas Supreme Court case. And that case, Judge, is interesting, even though it's not a defamation suit. In Spur Star, a foreign manufacturer sold its products in Texas through a Texas distributor. The court was asked to consider whether the use of a distributorship insulated the manufacturer from the reach of a Texas court when one of the products injured a Texas citizen. The court held that a manufacturer is subject to specific personal jurisdiction in Texas when it intentionally targets Texas as the marketplace for its products, and that using a distributor intermediary for that purpose provides no haven from the jurisdiction of a Texas court. Now, here, I suspect that El Diario de Juárez wants to argue somehow that based on that contract, which we attach as Exhibit 1 to our response, El Diario del Paso acts as an intermediary or distributor of their newspaper in the state of Texas. If that's their argument, then Spur Star, Judge, could give you some solace, because the Texas Supreme Court said that when an out-of-state manufacturer specifically targets Texas as a market for its products, that manufacturer is subject to a product liability suit in Texas based on a product sold here, even if the sales are conducted through a Texas distributor or affiliate. In such cases, it is not the action of the Texas intermediary that count, but the actions of the foreign manufacturer who markets and distributes the product to profit from the Texas economy. And that's what happened here. And that's consistent all the way back to Worldwide Volkswagen, a seminal United States Supreme Court case that also dealt with a manufacturer. And in that case, as the court knows, the United States Supreme Court found that a manufacturer does not avoid Texas law merely by utilizing a Texas distributor to sell its products in Texas markets, just as manufacturers cannot escape liability for defective products by selling them through a subsidiary or distributor, neither can they avoid jurisdiction related to such claims by the same means. I think the analogy here in the Texas policy is clear. Just like the United States Supreme Court and the Texas Supreme Court did not immunize an out-of-state manufacturer for products that it manufactured, even if it sold its products out of state, as long as the court could see that that out-of-state resident purposefully and intentionally targeted and marketed its products to Texas residents, businesses, and institutions, that would be sufficient to find sufficient minimum context and purposeful availment in its jurisdiction. For the following reasons, Judge, we respectfully ask the court to deny both defendants special jurisdiction.
Yeah, I need to respond, Your Honor. I'm sorry.
All right, quickly, let's just
I'll be real quick. One, Mr. Rodriguez testified that El Diario de Juárez does not have an office in El Paso, does not have a phone number in El Paso. Wherever the phone number is listed in the Juárez paper, it doesn't say it's a Diario de Juárez office. It's one. Two, he also said that Juárez targets Juárez. It doesn't target El Paso. That was his testimony. Now let's talk to his two cases. Spur Star says merely putting that product in the forum state is not acting purposefully and does not give rise to jurisdiction. That's what the case says. It says you have to have additional conduct as designing the product for the market in the forum state, advertising in the forum state, establishing channels for providing regular advice to customers in the forum state. There's no evidence of any of the additional conduct that Spur Star requires as a stream of commerce case. TV Azteca, Mr. Ortega is wrong on some of the facts in Azteca. As I quoted earlier, Supreme Court found that plaintiffs physically entered Texas to promote the broadcast, not just to promote their TV station, the broadcast at issue. That the defendants had a business office and a production studio in Texas. The defendants hired a Texas employee to expand their broadcasts in Texas. Those were the facts the Supreme Court relied on in finding jurisdiction. And it said, as I said before, a non-resident can purposely avoid a particular jurisdiction by structuring its transactions so as to neither profit from the forum's laws and thus not be subject to its jurisdiction. There's no evidence that Diario Juarez has benefited whatsoever from the laws of the state of Texas. And that is what is required under Azteca and the other, in all the cases. They got to have the benefit of the laws to have that jurisdiction. Last, again, as we talked about, Mr. Ortega apparently has finally conceded that he has to use this jointly sold argument because there's no good argument that El Diario de Juarez sells its paper in El Paso. All the cases, the defamation cases and the non-defamation cases say for specific jurisdiction, that entity has to commit the conduct in Texas itself. And it has to breach some duty itself. Can't be done by a sister or related company, parent or subsidiary. And we don't have that whatsoever, that Juarez does that in Texas. El Diario de El Paso does that. There is no jurisdiction in the state of Texas for these articles written in Texas against these defendants, Your Honor.
All right, what I need from each of you is the order that I want, that you want me to sign. 1, 2, I need findings of fact and conclusions of law supporting the order. Okay, findings of fact, conclusions of law supporting the order. And by when can you get it to me?
Is Tuesday okay, Your Honor? Give us a couple of days.
Wednesday, Thursday of next week is fine with me.
Perfect, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thursday, Judge, works for me.
Yeah,
Thursday.
Cindy's got a lot to do.
Okay, Thursday of next week, okay?
Thanks.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.
Pleasure,
Thank you, Judge.
both sides, okay? Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. Did an excellent job. Thank you. Thank you so much.